So I do want to start this panel off by saying welcome. Where did Emily go? We didn't want her to pop off. We don't want her to pop. Get on here. So if you're watching, get on here. I do want to just say welcome to our panel, Patriarchy and Power in Natural Wine and in the wine world in general. My name is Sarah. Yay! Welcome. So my name is Sarah Fernandez. I work in wine. I worked in my background's in restaurants and hospitality and the wine industry. And before that, I was a researcher for many years. I worked in a social psychology lab at NYU for a couple of years, and I worked as a public health researcher as well. So looking at the sociological forces that influence, I'm just gonna ask everybody to mute themselves during this portion, during the introductions. Yeah, just so we don't get feedback and stuff like that. So looking at sociological forces has been, something that I am very passionate about my entire life. And then I went into wine, and I was like, oh wait, hold on, what's going on here? This industry is kind of wild. It's kind of like the times, especially how decentralized it is. So that's my background a little bit. And I am very lucky to have met Pamela. And I do just want to say thank you so much to Pamela. You are an angel for putting this on. You have worked so incredibly hard to wrangle all these cats, get all these people, create these panels, and give space and voices to all of us and an opportunity to have these discussions. So thank you so much. I'm eternally grateful for you and all of the work that you do for this industry. So thank you. And I do acknowledge and thank you for the sponsor of this panel, the law offices of Jenny Wald. It feels appropriate that we have law offices, female lawyers sponsoring us. So yes. Okay, so our panel is called Patriarchy and Power in Natural Wine and in the wine world in general as well. But of course, this is a natural wine conference that we're having today. And I think it's apropos that the natural wine world is kind of one of the first bastions to say, hey, let's have this intense conversation. Let's actually start to name and address and give personal experiences to this influence of patriarchy in the wine industry. And, I feel like we've had this panel came about because Pamela has been a huge support of me, of all the work that I've been doing over the past couple of years of just being loud about the injustices and the harms that I see, especially coming into the industry and a little bit older and later on in my life. And she's been a huge support and listened to me rant and talk for many months about, I met her about a year and a half ago, many months about these different influences. She said, hey, why don't you just have a panel and get together a bunch of people that you figured dope and want to have this conversation? I was like, you would let me do that? And she said, hell yeah. And so this is where we're at right now. So we are going to, yes, thank you. We are going to have a great conversation. And I've gathered some of my favorite people and loud people about this to have this conversation. So I'm going to, in the interest of independence and self-reliance, which is the whole, this is what we're fighting against with the patriarchy. I'm going to have everybody introduce themselves. So I'm going to start with Lauren. Do you want to just give yourself a quick little introduction, who you are, what you do now in the wine industry?
Can you hear me? Perfect. So I've been a sommelier in New York City for the last few years, up until everything kind of shut down last year. I also dabbled a little bit in retail, but then, restaurants kind of sucked me back in. And then when the restaurant shut down, I went to try out Harvest, which is something that I never thought I could do before because it's kind of a time commitment that you put yourself in that's kind of hard to get from working in a restaurant. And then afterwards, I am in a new field where I'm actually an auction for wine. So it's kind of my first time. I've been in it for the last 6 months, kind of learning a different kind of realm. But it's been interesting. It's been fun making it work. That's it.
Very cool. Thank you so much. And then I'm just going around the clock. Kilolo, will you like to give yourself a little introduction?
My name is Kilolo Strobert. You said 30 seconds, and I was like, oh, I got this. And then I just went, So I currently am the assistant general manager of the Fresh Direct Wine and Spirit store in Park Slope, Brooklyn. Fresh Direct is the only and first online grocery store that services God knows how many people in the city, in other different states. And we have a very big community service push to help people. During the pandemic, we were very much a big company to, really help out those that were food deserts, food starved, things like that, through charity work. But my past has been on the distribution side, the importing side, restaurant side. I have culinary and food marketing degrees. I'm a native New Yorker. I'm from Crown Heights and I live in Crown Heights. And I'm really excited to be talking to y'all. And, I've just met everyone here recently. So I like to be with all these young people, influencing me and rounding out this some of the ways that I think. So I'm really excited to be talking. So I guess that's the intro.
Oh my God, you're young at heart. What are you talking about? You're young. Also, like, I know she's young, so don't listen to her. So, I mean, do listen to her because that's the point of this panel. But Travis, only person identifying as man on the entirety of the wine fair. So thank you for stepping up. And I just felt like it was very necessary. I felt like it was very necessary. If we're going to have this conversation, it was going to be completely intersectional. And it just, we can't have this conversation because patriarchy affects men as well. And, it subjugates them as well. So Travis, why don't you give us, so that's why I was like, also Travis is dope as hell. So Travis, give us a little.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me here. I think I'm a strong believer that education is the gateway to actually understanding and being able to break down some of these barriers that we have in our industry and in our society in general. It's important that we redefine our roles as men in the industry and what we can do to make it better and just have an open ear. So I'm glad to be here listening as well as contributing. And, thank you so much for allowing me to be here. Currently, I am from the Boogie Down Bronx. I am currently working with Yannick Benjamin at Contento restaurant. We are going to be one of the full accessible restaurants in East Harlem. So please come check us out once we're open in the beginning of June. And thank you for having me today.
Oh, it is a pleasure. And if anybody isn't familiar with Yannick Benjamin, he is a huge proponent of disability advocacy, and his nonprofit Wine on Wheels NYC is really, really awesome. So please come out. Also, I live in Harlem, so I'm super excited to have this incredible wine restaurant and incredible team in the neighborhood. Oh, thank you so much, Travis. All right, Emily Ann, thank you so much for joining us. Want to give us a little background?
Hi, I'm Emily Ann. I live in New York now, and I'm currently the GM of Terroir Wine Bar and Restaurant in Tribeca. I have been in New York for about 4 years. I'm originally from a very small coal mining village and decided that I was a little bit too weird and strong-headed to stay there. So a series of happy accidents later, I ended up teaching English, music, and math in France. I taught music education stateside as well as English and French. And when I transitioned into hospitality, honestly, it's kind of the same thing for me. I'm a relatively introverted person, but I'm dying for social connection. And so teaching and performing hospitality allow me that. It's almost my drag in a sense and my way to connect with people. And wine for me, I started learning out of spite because I was a busser at a restaurant and they wouldn't let me wait tables. And I decided to study to prove to them that I could. And then I fell down the rabbit hole of how incredible it is that it can tell the story of the earth itself through all of the geological things that have ever happened, and the story of mankind and womankind and humankind itself, because where we have traveled and settled, we have always taken vines, and the human connection factor is very important to me. And that is generally me.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much. Yeah, Emily Ann, you are an angel. I'm just so happy to have you on. And so, Katie, last but definitely not least, give us a little.
Hey, I'm Katie. I'm Brooklyn based. I have been in the food and beverage industry for the last 15-ish years. Started in kitchens, worked around to lots of other roles. Moved more towards the beverage side of things a couple of years ago after GMing a couple restaurants in the city. I've been working in retail now for the last 3 years, and I love it. It's much better than staying up until 4 a.m. and being drunk all the time at work. Sometimes you're still drunk at work. And I'm actually opening up a shop next month in Brooklyn, right here, in Prospect Heights. So that's me right now. Black Cat Wines.
Yeah, and that is, I'm so excited for that shop. So rad. Yeah, so it's going to be in the old Mimi's Diner space. So please, everybody check it out. It's going to be like a coffee shop, wine shop hybrid, if I believe.
Yeah, it's a weird hybrid of a thing. We're just open all times of day doing everything. But
yeah,
wine retail every minute of the day. So, you know.
Love it. Liquids.
Yeah, all liquids.
All liquids all the time. I love it. Inclusivity of liquids and diversity. Yeah. That's what we're
about. Inclusivity.
Yes, awesome. Well, thank you again to everybody on this panel. So again, our panel is we're going to be talking about patriarchy and power in natural wine and in the wine world in general. We have different backgrounds, from some very natural wine focused to some more classical, and on many in a variety of experiences here. And I do just want to, we are having a difficult discussion today. You know, we are here doing work. It is work to talk about harmful practices and harmful experiences from our own lives and from other people. So I just want to thank you and acknowledge everybody who's here viewing and listening to this conversation, and, you know, writing in the chat and asking questions, because this is a difficult conversation, and progress. We can't move forward with inclusivity. We can't have the diversity and all of that diversity brings to this industry without having these conversations. So I do have a series of questions for us as so let's just jump right into it. So the first one, our first question of which is, we're just going to define in a couple of words patriarchy and patriarchal behavior, and just like if anybody has any examples of seeing this, could you possibly have any examples of how patriarchy comes about in the wine industry. So patriarchy is associated with a set of ideals and acts to explain, justify, and perpetuate dominance by a group of people who identify as men. Another way of saying it is patriarchy is a in which men hold the primary power and predominate in roles of political leadership, moral authority, social privilege, and control of property, control of business. Some patriarchal societies are also, and this is a point that I do want to make, you know, as I've done my own research to prepare for this panel in general, is that we are talking about societal influence that has exerted its influence and dominance throughout all of human history. What we're doing here is literally changing the social and ideological tides of human history. And none of us are sociologists. You know, we're not here to talk and pontificate on the actual definitions. We are here to bring this large societal influence and how it wine industry is very old and also kind of new, but very old, and also a completely international industry as well. And we're here to provide examples and illuminate how this force causes and perpetuates harm. So I'm just going to go around and ask everybody, do you have any examples of defining your own ways, how you've seen this come about in the wine industry, and if you have any examples. Anybody want to start? Should I call on someone? Any thoughts? Katie, you wanna go first? You wanna go first? Travis.
I can go first. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah. Let's Emily. Emily, do you have something?
Sure. I mean, listen. I think all of us have probably seen this in relatively similar ways, at least at their core, even if they're sometimes expressed somewhat differently. I, for example, got my very first start in the hospitality industry, working at a kind of a really divey tourist trap bar right on the ocean front, and men were encouraged to who were employees wore t-shirts, shorts. They had sort of a pretty well defined list of things they were to wear, and it was relatively covered. And women were strongly encouraged, for example, to wear less, citing that we were right on the beach. So wouldn't it be comfortable if we were warmer? And then there are things, of course, that are a lot more nuanced than that. I remember when I first took over a wine bar that's no longer there in Virginia Beach, Virginia. I became their beverage director, and frequently I would get called to the table. Can I speak to the somm? And I'd go over, and I was often referred to as, oh, you must be the lady somm, which I found fascinating because I'd never met a man somm before, or a lady somm. And I think it's not just as a woman, but I also come from very rural Appalachia. So this accent, for example, is not my real accent. That accent I keep for friends, family, and when I'm really angry or really tired, because I found that when speaking with people in the context of trying to maintain authority, it's really hard to keep it when you have an incredibly thick rural Appalachian accent. And when you are female presenting, that coupled with an accent immediately undermines all of your authority. And I think that really was the first time that it started sinking into me that was even an issue, because coming from such a small place, I wasn't really exposed to any other ways of being until I moved, and all of a sudden was outside of my happy little family unit of support and understanding that I'm an intelligent human with things to say. So I guess that's where it started for me, and I'll give it up to the next contestant.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. Like this, and I think you just named something really important, like the normalization of these biases, and why we're having this conversation right now is so important, because all of these biases and just like these microaggressions and micro harms are just so normalized. And until we start to actually get together and have a conversation, like, wait, hold on, why we shouldn't be doing that anymore, is where progress happens. So thank you so much for sharing that personal experience. Kilolo, lay it on.
Emily, I don't need to say anything. That I think that like she hit it on the head just with that story. We all see that, hear that, and feel that anytime we're working or have worked in, before this year. And what I mean before this year, I mean is that now there's actually this movement that is happening where you as a female, as a male that is with us, that is a person of color, that is a strong person that realizes what's happening is not what you want to be the norm or should be the norm, has a voice and feels as though the voice actually is going to be heard, rather than if it was a voice that you had, it was going to be stomped on, tamped down, thrown to the side, you would be kicked out, fired, labeled, banned, and all the other things. So I'd rather, say that after her story, because I think that's a blanket statement. If I have not had that happen to me specifically, which I feel like anyone has, or you've seen it. So.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. Yeah, and exactly, like, even if you haven't had a personal experience like that, you have definitely seen it. You have seen it at some point in your life. You have seen these interactions and this harm caused at some point, and that's why we're here. We're here to name it so that people know that that's not okay, and that we can actually, there's strength in numbers, and that this influence and the misogyny actually affects all of us and the majority of people, and how we can talk through that. And we'll get a point in the panel where we'll talk about progress, like where we look forward looking, like how are we going to transmute the harm that has been caused. But yeah, so awesome. So I love that. Y'all want to move on to the next question? Feel good about that? Anybody, any last thoughts on just like defining and just like blanket statements about seeing patriarchy harm in, Lauren?
Well, in terms of patriarchy, what gives men power is dominance, and how you dominate women for one way is by policing their bodies. And I remember at one of my jobs, I was told it was forbidden for female sommeliers to date other somms in the city because they could develop some sort of reputation that could tarnish the company. And when I had asked if the other male somms had been had the same conversation, they said no, it only applied to women. And that was just like such a gross, like, double standard of like how women are treated. It was just said in a sort of like, well, like how it is, as if I should accept that sort of belief. And it still has stuck with me to this day. And I immediately just felt like, I don't know, shamed and like sexualized, and I felt controlled, and I felt like I couldn't live my life outside because like I represented a company. And anyway, so that was like kind of a huge thing that stood out for me about how patriarchy is still like so insidious within the wine industry. That was it.
Thank you so much for that example. That is, first of all, disgusting. Nobody ever gets to police you or your actions, especially under, for a job, because they don't get to control your life. But that is also, and we'll get to it later on, that is also how these harmful influences, they attach to each other, the intersectionality of, as Bell Hooks likes to call it, the white supremacist patriarchal capitalism, and how they all influence each other. So thank you so much. And also gross, just gross. I think everybody is feeling a little bit grossed out by that that experience, and I'm so sorry that person spoke to you, that person had the feeling of power that they could tell you what to do. And that's not at all. That's what patriarchy does. Patriarchy is based on dominance. Patriarchy is based on subjugation. Patriarchy is based on controlling and shaming. And the opposite of that is acceptance. So, all right, so we're already at 6:25. I'm trying to be good with time. Obviously, I'm terrible with time. So I would also love to talk about, so my next question is, in what ways have you seen the patriarchal dynamic play out between marginalized groups in the wine industry? For example, between gender identities, racial identities. I've seen this play out a lot by internalized toxic traits. I've worked for an all-female company before where, I walked in and everybody was very competitive. The last panel that was on the BIWAC panel was amazing. Okay, don't worry about time, which is the opposite of what I need to hear. But anyway, where they were talking about competitiveness and how there is almost this scarcity mindset of and this competitive aspect that is built into this industry, and that comes from a patriarchally dominated point of view. So I would love to talk if anybody else has some internalized patriarchal, like between marginalized groups. Have you seen any examples of that? Anybody want?
Hi. So when I first started working in hospitality, I worked predominantly in nightclubs. I worked in the Latin nightclub industry. You would sit down for dinner, and then after a certain time in the night, we'd move the tables, and then we'd set up for a lounge experience for everybody. So one of the things that I noticed while I was in this specific industry was that you were, based on your gender, you were trapped in certain jobs. You know, men were expected to do most of the physicality. You were the dishwashers. You worked behind the line. And if you were extremely, extremely lucky and you had even a hint of charisma, you could move onto the floor and work as a server. In this same industry, women were stuck in the jobs of being bartenders, being cocktail waitresses, and they were also stuck in, you know, just in general, anything where they could get men to spend more money while still making women comfortable, and having to juggle all of these responsibilities while not being able to be management or actually work in a slower pace and work on the floor, not have to stay in the nightclubs till 4 a.m. while some of the men were getting to go home at 2 a.m. And absolutely, as like Emily Ann said, being able to work more covered and a lot more comfortable. So working with that was something that was really, really tough for me to see for a while. But, you know, some of my female coworkers, they were hustlers, they were go-getters, they went above and beyond, and they did everything that they could to break out of that. And most of them are my personal heroes. And a lot of the people that I came up under were women who hustled, who busted their ass, and who went above and beyond to pass these roles and transcend it. And when I got into the wine industry, I thought that it was going to be something that I was going to see a lot less of. And come to my surprise, I saw more. I saw more. I saw it in different forms. I saw it manifest itself and take its ugliest shapes in the calm of everything else that was going on. And honestly, it was just something that even to this day, it was extremely hard because, you know, you always want to be able to say more, to do more without getting into anybody's business. You want to leverage, but you don't want to be too attached to what somebody's doing in their career and what's going on. You don't know if you're going to mess up somebody's flow, mess up a job that they had to bust their ass to get to just because you want to say something. And that, you know, because there's a social dynamic that goes into this patriarchy as well. And, you know, it's something that it's felt by everybody. It's this policy and these different things that just tie us down. And, you know, just was extremely rough. And even now, like when I think about, do I want to go back to work? What is it that I want to see when I do finally get back to work, and what I want to change? I think that's something that makes everybody just hesitate a little bit more, you know, when getting back on that horse and really being able to give a piece of ourselves to somebody else so they can enjoy themselves. It's something that's always on my mind.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah.
I want to talk about the social aspect, Travis, that you just brought up, because that's something that has always just like, it's always on my mind. I used to I GM'd a couple of restaurants in the hotel industry, and for years, and I was a female GM with mostly floor managers under me who were older than me and mostly male. So that already was a really hard dynamic. But I all the time, and you know, this is also part of the reason that I eventually decided I needed to open my own thing and stop working for other people, is that working for other people, there's always like things that are, and especially established places, like these are hotels that have existed in New York for a long time, and they have, you know, they have a lot of rules, but like a lot of just like norms and a lot of like things that you just have to allow happen because that's how it is. For example, there was a lot of this like, you know, I would try to hold people, because for me, I want to hold everybody accountable, male or female, whoever you are, you need to be held to the same standard because that's the way it should be in any industry. But there was a lot of like, you know, the men who worked Friday night and worked late, I basically wasn't allowed to reprimand them. Like my director of operations would tell me like, oh, like it's okay if they didn't finish the closeout sheet. Like, you know, they were up late and whatever. There was always an excuse. Whereas like the one female floor manager I had, like anytime she did something wrong, I felt like I had to come in and like defend her to other people that were like, oh, why didn't you do that? Like it was during the day, it was this and that. And I'm like, well, she had a million things. Like that guy didn't fill out the closeout sheet. Like it's always this like, and then on top of that, you know, so there's always this like, oh, like boys will be boys. Like he had a lot going on. Like men are dealing with a lot on the side, and women just kind of like pick up the slack and cover your ass always. But on top of that, there's like always going to be in this industry, this social, like guys get to go out, like the guys go out, especially, I mean, like, and like you're talking, like Travis, you were talking about like especially in nightlife, like it's a lot of the men working and then like schmoozing and then getting to go out with people afterwards. Like I worked in hotels where like there were like a lot of celebrities, and like all of the men went out and partied with the celebrities and had fun, and like the women were left to clean up the mess at home. Like it's just how it is, and it sucks.
Oh my God, no, thank you so much for all of that. You know, it's so real, especially in an industry where like all of your work kind of is dependent upon the previous person's work too, right? So like,
Absolutely.
yeah, like if they're not doing, then you get fucked because you're doing their side work plus your own work, which is also, you know, what the majority of people who identify as women or gender neutral or queer, you know, like often do. And on top of that, we are also doing this whole other landscape of something, I think, Katie, that you brought up in a previous conversation called emotional labor. You know,
Absolutely.
we are doing that. Yeah, we are doing this whole you know, documented layer of emotional labor, which is what? Service is labor. We are exchanging our energy for, you know, for money. And that is just like, it's wild. So that there's all of these different layers, and then we're still pigeonholed and siphoned and subject roles. So thank you so much, guys, for all these beautiful examples of internalized, talk about internalized patriarchy, not overt misogyny and patriarchy, but more internalized between marginalized groups. Emotional labor.
I'll add one more thing onto the emotional labor train, because I think one, like by definition to me, hospitality involves a certain amount of emotional labor across the board, because really the ultimate goal of it has nothing to do with forks or spoons or wine or anything else, and what you're truly doing. And I had a hard time for a long time with this profession because my parents both work in social services. My dad was in charge of housing all of the battered women in Ohio. My mother is the executive director of children's advocacy centers in Ohio, who perform forensic interviewing and act as the liaisons between the court systems and perpetrators and social services. And so they do like things that matter overtly, loudly. And I was working in wine at a restaurant, and that felt really weird until I realized at some point that almost no one that I know who works any job like that, or what really any job at all, gets enough full recharge vacation time. And so what hospitality truly is giving a 90-minute vacation, a pocket of alternate reality where shoulders can come down and they get to leave a little later than when they came in, and then they get to keep doing the thing that they do. So I figured that part out, and I'm okay with it. But when it comes to the emotional labor and its division between the genders, it is insane because especially women are trapped. I mean, obviously all of us are charged with slightly adapting ourselves to be whoever it is that someone needs us to be within reason, with 1,000 asterisks. But the idea that seems to be so prevalent amongst so many people is that women are more empathic, and therefore if someone's having a hard day at the bar, go over and talk to him. It would be nice. Give your feminine maternal energy, which is an assumption you shouldn't make that all female presenting people have, first of all. But even that aside, it's almost this expected and reinforced thing, especially amongst men. And then by the same token, then it perpetuates that stereotype that they have and want to keep in many cases, that women are more emotional, are more maybe sensitive, are maybe more prone to be irrational, and therefore shouldn't be charged with these other trusted positions. And so it becomes sort of a vicious self-reinforcing cycle that I would really like to see change. And rant.
No, thank you so much. That was just, again, so incredibly beautiful. Going from just like what we do in service and what wine is too. Wine is bringing people to the table, right? You're gonna have wine and food, and that is our emotional recharge time. That's family time. And to then, like, it is consistently and why is being emotional and sensitive a bad thing? It's not. It's our superpower. It is literally how we rear the next generation. It is how we create, it is how we raise up and continue. And so it is, and it then being, again, because of these patriarchal nuances of the wine industry where you have to dominate, you have to sell, you have to, you have to turn the table. And there's no space for that hospitality, and that that emotional labor isn't valued in the same way, and you get siphoned position. Thank you so much, Emily Ann. Yeah. All right. Any last thoughts before we continue? I just have a personal, I think that this is part of where the deprogramming really comes into play, is this internalized misogyny that we harm each other because we do the dirty work for them, right? And until we start to exercise it and really start to talk it out, accept our past behaviors, like so many times. And I've definitely, like, the reason I bring this topic up is because I have perpetuated examples of internalized misogyny in my own life, and I can own up to that and say that was really fucked up, and I personally caused harm as a Latino woman, have caused harm. And so, all right, so talking about moving on to our next question, now that we've got some definitions and examples of what patriarchy, misogyny, and how that exhibits it within the wine world, in what ways does this dynamic lead to harm, and how does that play out in the wine industry? And I know we have a lot of hospitality heavy people here. That's because of me. I'm biased towards, that's my background and everything like that, but it plays out in many different layers and systems within this industry. Working at a winery, working in sales and distribution, working as a sales rep. I've worked as a sales rep. Oh my God, same biases go on. So in what ways does this lead to harm? And I mean, first of which, just straight up, if you know my background, I'm very loud about the sexual harassment and assault that is extremely prevalent within the wine industry. We are selling a commodity that lowers people's inhibition, leads towards harm, unfortunately. Start to blur lines and boundaries, and that is where Pamela and I's relationship really intersected. I wanted a way to start to make change in a progressive, concrete example. And she was working, I met her at a wine conference last year in Oakland called, where we were talking about patriarchy and sexual assault in the natural wine industry, put on by her and Yurka Yehi. Shout out to Yurka, she's an angel as well. And where I was introduced for the first time to the price of admission. It was called the price of admission, and where I was introduced to the Vanguard and to the equity pledge. And so that is kind of where this whole conversation came about, because the Vanguard, which is a nonprofit where a bunch of wine professionals, incredible wine professionals, have come together to put this pledge together and say, hey, how do we outline all the injustices going on in the wine industry and put down in paper and have people, we want to do something about this harm. So going back to my question, ADD as hell, I'm so sorry, everybody, moderator, but now that we've got some definitions and examples, in what ways does this dynamic lead to harm, and how does it play out in the wine industry? Sexual assault and harassment. This wine industry and hospitality industry in particular has some of the highest rates of sexual harassment. I think about 70% of all employees who've worked in hospitality have reported some sort of assault or harassment. So would anybody like to talk about the emotional labor, excusing behavior? I mean, Pamela and I have talked about many times about the Natural Wine Boys Club and how their shirts come off after a certain hour. And, you know, they just start, the cocaine comes out, their shirts come off, and it becomes incredibly professional. Let's talk about harm and how misogyny harms us.
I think that one of the first things that when I got into the wine industry, I went out, it was my first day of work. I was working at Italy, and my first day in, I've never worked with wine before. Brand new, coming out the nightclub, somebody gave me a shot. And after work, you know, you try to go to the bar, you try to pick up on a couple things. Maybe they'll let you know which managers are going to be tough, and you know what time does the dinner rush start, and you know, you go in for the basic rundown. And as soon as I got there, I was immediately told by all my male coworkers that my female coworkers would, because it was also my first time working in a pool house where we share tips. I always got my own tips. We had our own sections, and that's just how it was. Getting there, you get into the dynamic of when people are sharing money now, and it's always one person's not picking up the slack, and immediately it shifted from you know, instead of just being this general thing that I was learning about the job, it immediately went to my female coworkers and how they didn't really care about wine, how they were only there to make money, to give a certain level of service where they can just pool money and contribute to the tip pool, but they would never contribute as much as the men. They didn't themselves actually care about wine, which totally not true. As time goes on, you figure these things out. And then I was immediately told after that, me being one of the only Hispanic servers that worked there and coming out of the nightclubs, that I would have just as much to prove to these guys as my female coworkers, because people were gonna, just the same way they read through my female coworkers, were gonna read right through me as a Latino and know that I was just there for the money and I myself didn't care about wine. Which, you know, at the time, I didn't know much about wine, but I cared about hospitality, and I cared about being able to get out there. And so interesting that my female coworkers were the ones who actually cared about wine. The head som that worked there, she was a Black female who also happened to be gay, and I got to see like all the stuff that she went through, and the actual how it affected, you know, she'd just walk into work and there was just already these notions that she didn't care enough or didn't, it always went, anything that went wrong went to her. Anything that went wrong went to my female coworkers. And it went from this thing about just acting like somebody doesn't care. And then it started to affect them emotionally the way it would affect anybody. You know, and they're savvy to what's going on. You know when somebody a different mindset. You know when somebody's throwing shade. You know when somebody's getting a little spicy with you. And it started to affect the actual service. It started to affect the actual amount of money that we were able to put in. All of this talk about how these things were affecting the money and how much it actually to become true, just in the opposite way, where the backstabbing, the talking behind people's backs, that was, and then me coming in, just absolutely discouraging me, and just making me just like so upset with the industry, and just like, I don't even know. Do I want to do this? Do I want to get a job somewhere else? Is it maybe because it's corporate, and you start trying to take it away from the patriarchy and making excuses for it. And I don't ever want to make excuses for something like that. It's not something that we should have to do when we go to work. It's not something that should, it's not a part of our job description. We're supposed to be there for hospitality. We're there for things bigger than ourselves. I personally believe that. I'm a career server. I'll be doing this for the rest of my life because I genuinely enjoy it. You know, and I think that when all of it's said and done, the actual patriarchy affects the hospitality that the guests receive, because it takes a toll on the staff emotionally, men and women.
No, thank you so much, Travis. I think that's like a fabulous quote, right? Like at the end of the day, this misogyny does affect the customer experience. It affects like all levels of this. Kilolo, I don't want to like put you on the spot, but like I feel like you might have some examples of the how harm has has caused harm either towards you or towards other people, especially as a Black woman. Like, yeah, she's like, I got some.
Sorry if I was delayed jumping in there. I'm having a little technical difficulties.
You're perfect.
Okay, so I guess what I would have to say is everyone's saying things so beautifully that I really am just kind of like, yes, yes, and yes. And that my overall view and what I've seen and what I've felt and what I've witnessed over time, unfortunately, I can't say anything that positive, because most industries, especially the one that we're in, hospitality, is dominated by men. So if you're in an environment dominated by men and they write the rules, then, and it's an American, we're talking about an American environment, which is based off of racism, then the answer is no matter who you are, except for, no matter who you are a witness, or you felt some kind of injustice in terms of how people have been treated. And the reason why is because the system is not based on being fair. The system is based on promoting men, and specifically white men. And when you think about wineries, when you think about restaurants, when you think about money, when you think about management, you think about these men that have built the rules to help themselves and to keep people oppressed so that they can continue to benefit from the rules that they set up. So, you know, we are now at this time where we don't have as much fear as a people, no matter what your socioeconomic or demographic is, to say, we know, we're indoctrinated, and we're tired. Which is why, you know, I was very happy when Travis was like, you should talk to Sarah because this is happening. And then we all met up and I was like, okay. Luckily, at this time and place, I work for a big company, but I don't have the fear and shame. Whereas a year ago, I would have, to say this on such a big platform. But now I'm like, wait a minute, no, I represent this company. They hired me, they gave me power, and I feel comfortable in speaking this way. But that's only because they've made a statement to say X, Y, Z. Because before, if they hadn't, I would have felt a little bit like, well, I don't want to mess with my money. I don't want to mess with where I've gotten so far to be this assistant general manager, or where I want to go. And I think that's also what we're seeing, these blessings of companies that, even if they're faking the funk, because there are a lot of companies out there saying, yeah, I got y'all's back, go ahead. We have never been like this. We've always been fair. Yeah, we all have receipts of you not being fair. But the point is that we're now, starting to be able to talk about it. So I don't know if I answered the question or went in there right, but it's, I'm really happy that the strength in numbers that we're starting to see in this rising up of wanting to reshape these rules is happening, so that we don't see what we've all witnessed or felt due to these rules.
Yeah, Kilolo, I think that's a really important part of all of this, is that we have all seen this. No matter who you are in this industry, you have seen this. If injustices haven't been done to you, you've seen it. Like, whoever you are in this industry, it's always existed. And it's up to us. It's up to all of us. It's up to, that's why, like, Sarah, when you put together this panel and you had Travis on here, I was like, oh man. And then I was like, oh no, this makes sense. Like, it was like, first of all, Travis is wonderful. Second of all, this is also really important because the patriarchy does affect everyone. And it's important that we have men on our side who are speaking up, because everybody knows this shit goes on. Am I allowed to say that? Everybody knows this stuff goes on, but it's about actually doing something. And it's about being the person who is in power and doing something about it and leading by example. That's what I just wanted to add on to that.
Yes. Oh my God. Thank you. Yes. And also Kilolo fucking spitting like facts right here. And also you made a really great point about to work for this company after they said a statement. I've heard so many people say like, oh, why do people have to like make public announcements or statements about like where they sit on these social issues? It's like, well, because their employees want to know that if we come and work for you, we want to know are you going to align with us? Or are you going to throw us under the bus? Or are you going to put our brown asses on some like fake commercial and have us say some lines to protect your ass? Because I've been watching a lot of TV this weekend because my dad's here, and those commercials suck. Anyway, Emily Ann, I see you.
I just kind of wanted to tack onto the general direction we were going in with. It's one of the reasons that I love the environment that I work in now. Is specifically, it has to do with personal boundaries. And even more specifically to that, in a hospitality setting, especially in a more casual environment, there's going to be some kind of weird back and forth, like the banter that happens, right? It's relatively common. And generally speaking, you receive energy, you push back with your own energy, you create the boundary, whatever that is, and then it must be respected. Fine, I would say fine, but that's also unacceptable. However, that's not the point. I had an experience right when I first started at Terroir where a person came in. It was a gentleman. He came in with friends of his. He's a very well-known person, and he was also very well-known for some unsavory behavior. Hadn't done anything to me, so I started to wait on this person, and this person crossed my personal boundary. I made it very clear, and then I kicked him out. He didn't want to leave. I went downstairs to get the owner of the establishment to go up. Never one time did he ask me what happened, ask me to tell him the details. He went upstairs, immediately ejected that person, and the only thing he asked me is, "Are you okay? Can I do anything for you?" Never made me explain it. And the importance of that is that, one, obviously, we as employees want to feel protected, but even more importantly, what would it have mattered what I would have told him? Because then he would have been taking that information and making a value judgment on my personal boundaries, which should never be something that comes into play. And that's something I think that people should take note of, especially those who are in managerial or supervisory roles. of allowing people the safety and the space of defining their own personal boundaries and never having to justify them against anyone else's. Anyway.
Thank you. Yes, Lauren, go ahead.
No, I think that's really important for management and leaders to protect their staff. And well, currently I have a lot of friends that are returning and have returned to restaurants. And I guess a lot of management are saying, oh, you know, we're trying to make it a point now to hire more women and people of color. And I mean, that's great that they're doing that, but I don't know if they're expecting some sort of like gold star or like, you know, again, like a certificate that they're hiring these like talented and intelligent women and people of color. But what I'm afraid of is that they're going to do that for the optics or like virtual signaling, and that they're not actually going to protect them when it comes to issues of harassment from other staff members or from guests. Are they going to promote them? Are they going to pay them what they're worth? Are they going to help with their education? And so, I mean, I'm really glad that, like, you know, the conversation has started and like small things are being put into place, but it's all about like maintaining accountability and how they're going to ultimately make it more of a inclusive space.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lauren, and everybody. I think that question of accountability that we've been talking a lot. We've talked a lot about it internally and externally at the Vanguard when it comes to the equity pledge. I mean, what is accountability in this progressive social, you know, progressing our social norms and understandings? And that's the whole point, is like having men who stand up and they don't question you. Don't justify why you need support. Just support them and trust in your employee. And, you know, big shout out to Paul Greco. We love you. Thank you so much. And all of these examples were wonderful. Yeah.
I just wanted to say, yes, shout out to any manager that is actually looking at the staff, their actual colleagues, because you're a manager. Just because you're a manager doesn't mean that you are a puppet master, which a lot of people automatically put themselves in this category of like God. Oh, I'm a manager now. No, they're still your colleagues. They're still people. You've been where they are, hopefully, not everyone, because that's part of that patriarchy, right? That's part of that hierarchy, the indoctrination that, you know, of the story that a person tells you, meaning that you automatically think that they should just be elevated to certain status even though they're not qualified. But we're not talking about that right now, even though we are. But, you know, these colleagues of yours are people, and we should think on it and say, they're uncomfortable. Why are they uncomfortable? Is what they're saying making sense? Because these are trustworthy people. It's on an individual basis based off of how people work together and how they are as an employee and as a manager. That's what you take into consideration when you're handling tough things like that. But these are colleagues. And I just feel like a lot of times owners or managers or whatever don't do it that way. So it's nice to hear that in such a popular space as that we all know of, that it exists, because it's rarely seen, unfortunately, in my experience.
I totally agreed. Definitely rarely seen. And it's like that crazy juxtaposition. Like, you'll hire them to serve wine, but you don't and spiel tables and do proper wine service, but you don't trust them when they're telling you that harm is being done, when they're customers. So what is actually the most important thing here? Is it your business, or is it the money that your business is bringing in, right? Which leads us to the next question about the intersection. So let's get intersectional here, people. So professor and activist, as I alluded to before, Gloria Jean Watkins, by her pen name Bell Hooks, has coined the term white supremacist capitalist patriarchy. I love it, because this is really where this conversation came about, was this intersection of how white supremacy, capitalism, the exploitive and toxic aspect of capitalism, and unchecked aspect of capitalism, and patriarchy, they all hold each other up. These are all harmful forces that hold each other up and reinforce each other. And so she termed that coin white supremacist capitalist patriarchy. It's a tongue twister, but it's fucking sexy, to describe the way these systems of power work together and function simultaneously at all times in our life. So I would love to examine a little bit, what is the relationship between patriarchy, both internalized and externalized, very blatant, obvious misogyny, and internalized between marginalized groups, between women, genderqueer, racial identities, and other harmful power structures such as capitalism, white supremacy. How do they support and hold each other up? I mean, we've kind of named some of the examples of it. Do you have any obvious examples of this in the wine industry, especially in, which is a tipped service, which is based off of a system of a racist system. So any thoughts here about intersectionality between capitalism, patriarchy, and white supremacy, and how it causes harm? I have some statistics, actually. Wait, I made notes. Oh, what if, before we dive into it, I have notes. So according to a recent congressional hearing that I was listening to, about 70% of tip workers are women. And of those, 3 times the poverty rate as the rest of the workforce. And they also suffer from the highest levels of sexual harassment. There's a direct correlation between tipped wage workers and sexual harassment, and the dissuasion of removing the tipped dynamic from hospitality. And there's a direct correlation to the if you remove tipped wages, there is a reduction in sexual harassment and assault. About 70% of people who worked in tipped workers have said they've been sexually harassed by their management, not even talking about the microaggressions, misogyny that occurs between the tipped worker and the customer, right? We're just talking about 70% of tip workers have been sexually harassed by management. So, and Black women are tipped significantly less than their Black male and white female counterparts. So some straight, statistical examples of the intersectionality of how misogyny, patriarchy, white supremacy, and capitalism comes into play. Does anybody have any examples? I'm not a very good question asker, but anybody have any examples? See any of these examples? I'm like, but by management, that just blew my mind. Yes, Trav.
When I think about being a tipped employee, one of the extremely gratifying for me was knowing that it was instant gratification. Especially when one of my first jobs, you worked, you put your tips in at the end of the night, you got your cash, and you went home. And the things that we put up with, knowing that there was a cutoff time, that we were able to go home, and that we were able to just move on from whatever happened that day. I'm sure everybody has had the experience of having a fucked up shift, and then you go, you get home, and you're like, I'm going back to work, like, or I'm ready to take another round of whatever exploitation has occurred, whatever else. I have a little bit more gas left in my tank, and management sees this. Most people who are managers, a lot of them have been in the same positions where they've worked for tips and have been promoted. And when you see this level of instant gratification occurring, when you see that somebody could be going through something semi-traumatic or just anything. I've had guests throw things at me. I've been in the nightclubs. I've had people throwing hookahs and all types of things, and then you go, as like Kate mentioned earlier, you get a little fucked up later on after the shift, and then the next day you're ready for more. And there comes a point after a certain amount of years where you're not ready for any more. You're ready to just get out of there. But all that time in between, it just leaves a very easy opportunity for management to take advantage of instant gratification and use that to their advantage. And when you have people that are struggling to pay bills, that are coming out of fucked up situations because the hospitality industry has taken us out of a lot of places. I personally speak for myself, where I could tell you I went from working $7.25 an hour and taking a bi-weekly check and barely, 40 hours a week. I was barely scraping $400, to them working in the hospitality industry, working as a food runner, then getting my first $450 for the week check, then working as a server, then making $800, pushing that doorman money, which is the job that they try to push all of us men. They want us all to be doormen, and like 10 years ago, the wages were competitive. But when you think about it now, some of us servers are making more than that, and it's instant. Some of us working in places where we're getting paid our cash tips at the end of the night and then waiting for credit cards at the end of the week. Instant gratification is extremely easy to take advantage of. It's extremely easy to exploit people who are making it. And it's extremely easy to also, create a certain a disconnect between people. You want to divide and conquer very easily. Tips, instant gratification, being able to take that away and using that power to create that exploitation, it's got to be the easiest way. And once they see that they can get away with it and that we're allowing it, they're going to keep running with it until it's too late, until the cookie crumbles in front of them, until they're put on blast. And it's about time that we start putting a lot of these fucking guys on blast.
Jake, go ahead.
Absolutely. I mean, okay, so there are a lot of similarities between capitalism and patriarchy. A lot of it's individualism in terms of our work, monetarily based, competition that can be really ugly and fierce. And if you go to the idea of the scarcity mindset being like, for any marginalized group, the sliver of success is so small when it comes to the wine industry. Therefore, it actually like helps preserve sort of this like white hetero cis patriarchal society, because it pits all these marginalized groups against each other. So, and ultimately that's just so toxic. It's keeping us down. We're actually giving into this game and like perpetuating these toxic traits, thinking that that's what we have to do to get ahead. So instead, I guess Travis called them out, and we also have to almost like band together and be more of a community to help each other out, instead of viewing everyone as a competition and saying that I have to tear you down. Instead, lift each other up and help promote that, and support those companies that do that, because that's ultimately sustainability.
Hell yeah. When one of us lifts, we all fucking lift. Okay, no more. There's no competitiveness. We all go up. Go ahead, Kate.
Go ahead. I was just going to agree that I think we're finally at a place now where we're getting there, where we are all working together and banding together in not just this industry, but a lot of industries, and a lot of marginalized groups are like, we're finally doing something about the shit that's been going on forever. But Kilolo, go ahead.
I just wanted to piggyback off of what Travis said as well, and I agree with Lauren and Katie. Well, we all agree in this room. That's why we're in this room. But I just want to say that, like, I actually had the pleasure of working at a hotel where I was a manager of mostly men in a tip pool. So I was the assistant rooms. I was the room service supervisor. And talk about sharks in the water. When you're talking about the tips and how that actually is able to really mind control people, the actually allocation of where this money's going. I want to take this tray up. This is a VIP. I know this person's going to tip this amount. I want to be the person that's in charge. We're a union. Oh, they're only 2 Haitian waiters. Everyone else is Dominican. I have an uncle, a grandfather, a son, 2 porters. They're all related. It's a family because the families get the families in. And then as a manager, they're getting paid double what you're getting paid because they're tipped out. So your anger toward how much money they're making compared to how much money you're making, a lot of the times translates into holding these people, putting them literally into a pattern of abuse that management subjects them to, because they understand the inequality, the equality within the ranks, but the power that the management has outside of the ranks, and everyone's taking out their anger on the system that wasn't built by them at all, but that they all use to their advantage in some way, shape, or form to get through the day. I never thought about it until Travis said that. It's real. It's real.
It's real. No, and it is real. And that's why we all come together and we have these conversations, because one quote will spark an idea from an experience that you had, and put those puzzle pieces together and say, oh, that's what that was. Now I can name it. Now I can start healing from that experience that I didn't even realize has been sitting with me. It's been literally living in our body. The body keeps score. We'll talk about trauma's a whole other. Trauma's my personal, but we'll talk about this other. And it's funny, and I really appreciate you guys talking about this conversation too, because that's kind of how this panel came about. I wanted to do like, what does wellness look like in this industry, right? And once I kept having these conversations, at the end of the day, I was like, you know what? We can't talk about wellness at surface. We talk about root causes and root issues, and that is the harm that misogyny and capitalism and white supremacy really, and how that permeates and infiltrates and sets seeds in toxicity in all of us. So, oh my God, just like, fucking panel, y'all are fucking beautiful. Okay, any last thoughts about harm, intersectionality of capitalism, white supremacy? I mean, like, I'll talk about this forever. Yes, go.
Okay, can you hear me still? We're good? Okay. Just to kind of piggyback off of what we were just talking about, I wanted to bring up the construct of healthcare in general, but especially mental health care, and the way that mental health is seen, especially because, like, one, it goes without saying that most hospitality workers and a lot of other smaller company workers in general don't get access to healthcare, and if they do, chances are good that the mental health care bits of it are relatively marginal. But that whole huge thing aside, there's the fact that, one, when it comes to hospitality or sales, you don't get to have a bad day publicly. And so we are forced to internalize over and over and over, and we become phenomenal actors and great compartmentalizers. But great comes with a pretty big price. And to kind of dovetail that into kind of the intersectional side of things, we got to talk about gender roles here and expectations, man. I mean, okay, so you have women, right, who obviously have to kind of suck it up and temper somewhat their more emotional side in order to be seen as serious and rational. But then you have men who are expected to not have any of those sensitivities, to not have those emotions, and they are immediately thrown to the side and seen as weak if they do. And so we got to redefine all of these roles. I mean, it's way bigger than just that.
Get rid of all of them.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know.
Say that one more time for the people in.
Fuck all gender roles.
Yes.
Yay!
That's right. social construct, just like patriarchy and capitalism. Okay, you heard it here first. Yes. Yes. Oh my God. I love you guys so much. Okay, so now we talked about harm. So we have a little bit of time, and I do want to get to, we have a couple of questions. But moving forward, the kind of the idea of this panel is I didn't want us to like just like harp on and just like break down the patriarchy, because I don't believe in that. I think that we have to transmute it. Patriarchy affects and harms all people, including men, including white men as well. It's a force. So how do we look forward? How do we transmute this harm into progress? How do we make it intersectional? How do we make it egalitarian? How do we make it diverse? Diversity is how we evolve progressively and how we survive. You know, this industry needs to survive. It needs to be inclusive and diverse. So how do we do that looking forward? And I am going to throw this to you, Katie, because you do have the reason I met Katie is when we first met, she was running a program called Punch Judy's. Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
I'm not let you come up with it.
Huh?
Butch Judy's.
Butch Judy's. There we go. Yeah. And which was an all queer, like natural wine bar and festival. And I thought that was brilliant. And I was trying to bring her into the restaurant that I was working at the time. Yeah. How do we look forward? What are some ideas? How do we make this inclusive and diverse and reduce the harm of patriarchy and the power?
Yeah, I mean, the whole concept of Butch Judy's was that, I mean, it was also this whole we could have a whole nother panel on just how there aren't enough queer spaces, and especially like female identified lesbian spaces, but that's a whole nother story. So that was the main thing with Butch Judy's, but we were just creating a place to enjoy, it was kind of forward thinking. We were make a place where you can have wine and it's not pretentious and it's for everyone. It's not just for straight white men. It's for other people in between who sometimes aren't invited to the wine parties.
Not feel super comfortable when everybody gets wasted and takes off their shirts at the end of the wine parties too.
Absolutely. Like, I mean, as somebody who, like, I've been in management for 10 years. And so like, I like pretty quickly in this industry was like, oh, I need to be in charge. Like that's who I am. So I've been in management for a long time. And something that is difficult is that I am like somewhere, I mean, I'm female identified, but I'm like somewhere in between. I'm definitely like more masculine fronted person. So I like get invited into the boys club a little bit, which like is this whole other thing, but I like don't get invited where it matters. And that hurts and sucks. And I'm always like, yeah, I'm in, like I'm hanging out with the wine bros. Like I'm one of them. And then I'm not. I don't actually get invited to like the wine dinners where like it's just like the little things that just, it sucks to not be invited to. You don't get invited into real conversations. You don't have a seat.
Right. No, you don't. And it's like qualified, right? Like you're allowed to have a seat at the table only this much.
Can I jump in really quickly on that? I can't tell you, and I've been complaining about this for years, how many times I am a big Black woman. There aren't really big Black women in hospitality in New York. People have seen my face for 15 years and they still go, what's your name? Or they look at me like, I've never seen you before. Now I understand having blinders on, but when you work at with someone like Yannick Benjamin and you have 95 sommeliers that clamor to pour at your event every year, you deal with over 150 vendors, you've worked at crazy different spaces, and people still look through you because they think that you're not an important enough person for them to talk to because you're a woman and because you're Black, even though you have been in spaces with them and been the only one multiple times? Give me a fucking break. That's part of this industry, the icing out. You know, you're a som. All I see you doing is putting up these fire-ass bottle pics. Where are you getting this money from? Where are you getting this support from? Oh, I don't know, Kilolo. This person just called me. Oh, they called you out of the blue. You've been somming a year? But because you're at La Bernardin or at Danielle or at, I don't know, Cote or wherever, we can name a million fucking places. Now you're in the crew because you look away. You front as if you give a shit.
Why they got
so
the
that you can, right, so that you can be, you know, part of the fucking cool kids. I've been in a room with the cool kids, and I ain't trying to be in a room with the cool kids, which is part of the reason why I'm in here. I want to be with the real kids, okay? Who still tasting fire stuff, who are enacting change, where this is not a battle. Sorry, I just had to say that was annoying.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yes, exactly. We don't want to be with these posers anymore. We don't want to be with the people who feel like they think they have to play into the misogyny and the patriarchy and perpetuate this harm. No. Anymore. It is 2021. That shit is over. And it's also fucking boring. I'm sorry. It is boring. So here having these real conversations, being real with one another. And first of all, also like we're all New Yorkers too. So like you know, we're only gonna give you real shit. So
I still to this day have people walk up to me and come and ask me if I'm the busboy and ask me certain questions just because I'm Hispanic. Right when you think you never get in those cool crews. You never do, because no matter what, it's just a certain level of separation. They'll let you in to a certain extent. But as soon as they see that you don't necessarily agree with the way they moving or how they doing things or how they talking or just anything, because you know I'm big on body language, I'm big on how people talking, I read the room real quick, and I know when I don't belong in the room. I know when I do belong in the room and when my voice is absolutely necessary in the room, but you got a couple dicks in the room, you know, and they're taking over, and it's their time to be in control, and that's a part of their patriarchy. That's a part of their dominance, and oh, I'm this and I'm that, and we, you know, we to a certain extent, especially like I'm guilty of it. I've let believe that, and you know, sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm thinking about something, or you have that dream about service. And when the patriarchy starts to get into the service industry dreams, that's when you know it's at a high level. Even when you're dreaming about taking too many tables that you can't even handle, there's like a little dash of patriarchy in there. That's when you know, like it's even in our subconscious.
Yeah, that's why we got to deprogram. That's why we got to have these conversations. That's why we got to be real, because it's an everyday process. I can't be clean off of yesterday's shower. I can't be clean off of last week's shower. It's every single day we do this work. Lauren, you look like you want to say something. Yeah? No? No? I was just joking. And Leanne?
I will. Piggybacking kind of off of the same thing, you know, especially talking about these clubs or whatever. You know, there's been a lot of racket lately in the wine community about the gatekeepers versus the travel agents. And we've started to see, at least in terms of, I'm thinking specifically about the interactions between sommeliers or wine hospitality folks and guests here, that, you know, I mean, my goal every day when people come in is to get them to relax and believe truly that they belong there. And my quickest way to kind of get there is to say, if your car breaks down or does something weird and you get to the mechanic, the only thing you're supposed to have to say is, I don't know, when I start my car, it makes a weird noise. And if you mess up your leg and you go to the doctor, the only thing you have to do is say, I don't know, my knee hurts when I bend it like this. You're not required to use certain language. You're not required to come as anything other than who you are and where you come from. And we're finally getting there a little bit in terms of our interactions with guests or customers or whatever the context may be for all the various pockets of the world of wine. But what I'm not seeing yet is that same level of inclusivity and acceptance and celebration of diversity of perspectives amongst peers. And that, I think, is a gross oversight, because we are finally yelling and making a lot of noise, and there are certain things that are starting to change. Fine. But let's keep scanning the room for what other thing is happening over there so that we can make sure that it's happening in all of the areas and not just one, so that we feel a little better that things must be moving in the next, in the right direction. Like, it's time to go.
No, thank you so much. Oh my God, you came up with so many great points, but one of which really pointed out in my mind is just like our bias towards how we also as employees, the bias towards our customers, and like sometimes how the staff, just how like this industry really will beat and grind you down and kind of like force your mentality into this way, which is why these conversations are so important, to free ourselves and deprogram and unbind ourselves, so that we get so jaded and biased in how sometimes we interact with others, and that gets reinforced in the work dynamics of how we until people are like, oh, Travis, you're the busboy, right? No, you fucking know so much about wine. So thank you so much. So go on to, I do want to make sure that we have of course, as I knew and as we talked about, we could talk about this forever. Victoria was like, live stream it, but we do have to end this conversation at one point because we have an amazing panel coming up afterwards, which everybody should stick around and watch, which is winemakers tasting wine and learning how to talk about wine in like a non-som-splaining type of way. So like definitely stick around for that panel going on afterwards. But before we move on to audience questions, any last thoughts, anything that people need to kind of get out and spurt out from this conversation? All right, we have some questions from the audience. All right, so asking us, how would you deal with a misogynist manager that yells at you all day for no reason because he has power, while you're actually going the extra mile for your guests, but undermining his authority? Ooh, I think we've all experienced this.
Quit. Find another job.
I was gonna say the same thing.
And I'm being honest by saying that, just because we all fall into this trap by thinking that the only place we need to be working is where we're working. And you are in a room with people that literally are like, there's better places. And if you can't find one wherever the hell you are, if you're in Minnesota, if you in Wisconsin, if you in Toledo, we have friends. Don't think you need to be staying where the hell you are with this asshole. Time to bounce and find a new place, especially now.
Exactly. You quit and then you tell all your friends not to work there as well. So.
On blast.
Yes, that is that intersectionality of patriarchy and capitalism. You do not have to stay there. You quit. You show them the power of labor, because powerful. Labor actually makes all of the capital in this country, but that's a whole other panel. Anyway, so Camille, that was a great answer. Camille asked, and also, I love that idea of like, we get so siphoned and we get so myopic in the world, in the jobs that we work in. Like I worked at a winery, and like the shit that was going on there was insane. They were calling their field workers Mexicans, and even we're still like, oh, I can't quit. I don't know. What am I going to do? Blah, blah, blah. No. You can always quit. and just reach out to us. Literally, we're on Instagram. I mean, I'm not going to talk for everybody else. You can reach out to me on Instagram. My full fucking name is up there. Like, you know, just send me a message and be like, I don't know what to do. I'm going to tell you to quit, and I'm going to connect you with somebody in wherever you are in the entire world, and we'll make it happen, because this is what we do together. This is why we have these conversations. We have each other's backs. Camille is asking, what can winemakers/growers do to interrupt patriarchal harm that intersects with retail hospitality side of the industry? Where can different parts of the wine world build cross-industry solidarity? I love this question. Any thoughts about cross-industry solidarity?
I'll say one thing that I think for winemakers and growers, I think who you, and I'm saying this as a buyer for wine stores and for restaurants in the past, I think who you choose as your distributor is a big thing, because there are a lot of shitty distributors out there right now doing a lot of shady things. And I think that's a big thing, because I don't buy from certain distributors that I won't name, but I do not buy from certain people because of the way they interact with winemakers and buyers and people in the world and everything.
No, I appreciate that. I remember at the conference that I was at last, The Price of Admission, I was talking to a pretty famous New York importer and distributor, where he was like, from this conference, I already have a list of at least 5 people that I'm going to go and talk to and be like, the next time you come, like, we need to have a conversation. I'm going to continue to carry your wines. And if you do come to America, like the next time you do come to America, and, you know, this was literally March 2020, so obviously none of this happened, but the next time you do come to America, like, we need to have conversations about code of conduct and how you conduct yourself when you come to New York, when you come to America, because we are not dealing with misogyny anymore. We're not dealing with harm. You can't sexually harass, you can't sexually assault women anymore, you can't take advantage of them. So thank you so much, Katie.
I think also we need to be able to just kind of read through the bullshit. You know, I recently went to a party for a natural wine producer in Slovenia, and we're there, and it's kind of like this, they're working, but like you see there's a group of people who really, really care about this wine, really have been putting it on their list, really care, really are all out there, and they're kind of isolated into this little bubble, and then the rest of it is just like a party. It's a regular party. They're taking pictures of everybody that's beautiful and this and that, and then it kind of you know, like, let's just say it's not a wine that I want to stand behind anymore. You know, and I'm not gonna drop any names, or I'm not gonna put anybody on blast like that. You know, you'll know right away. As soon as you get in these situations, you're gonna know exactly what's going on. And I think us realizing this, acknowledging what's going on, and then taking certain actions to make sure that we're not banging with you. We're not rocking with that. That's I felt so uncomfortable in the party. I felt like you know what I mean? Like it had nothing to do with wine at a certain point. You know, and I almost wondered why was I even there? Am I there just because I consistently buy your wine, or I'm with somebody who's always buying your wine? I don't know. I don't even want to be there. You know what I mean? And I think we know a lot of times when we're in those moments, and to be able to actually act on it is important. And I hope that after this panel that we're all gung-ho and ready to just...
I appreciate that so much, because this is a question that I just got from the audience. People like, how do we call out? Because it's like, how do we call out people who are trying to do the work but are slipping, right? How do you call out what is accountability in that aspect? We have a lot of conversations, Pamela and the Vanguard and everybody who's working, all the incredible angels who are devoting their free time to the equity pledge. How do we call out somebody? How do we keep them accountable when they're trying to do the work, but they're slipping, or they're just not getting it, or they're just, they're just not there. Like maybe they're performative, maybe they're just like really thick-skulled. How do we do that?
That's a really hard one, because I think personally I've dealt with people that, like friends in the industry, where I deal with this all the time, where I'm like, how do I tell you that you're doing it wrong, or you're like not doing it right? And I think it's just really important to like recognize that people are trying, and that like we're saying, we're in this time now, the past couple of years, where like things are getting overturned and people are really talking about things for the first time. And I think it's important to recognize when people are trying, but to gently push them in the right direction if they're straying. And there's just, that's something that I think about all the time. Like there's some way to like finesse telling people that like, hey, like those still aren't the right words to use, or like those still, like that's still not quite right, but I recognize you're trying, and here's a way to do it better, do it right.
I think another thing that's important when it comes to these kinds of conversations is the importance of not hiding behind a keyboard, because I understand that the magic of social media, of all of these different connected networks and virtual networks and groups, it's facilitated greatly by all things computer and tech. However, when it comes to one, truly gauging someone's intention based on their actions, so that you can see, are they trying and just not there yet? Is there still a level of ignorance, said in a more neutral manner than it might suggest? Is it just because they don't know yet, or is it an active choice to be stagnant? And I think that direct eye contact, you can really tell. And furthermore, I really believe in, I call it like the toothbrush rule. Like kind of my gauge of happiness in my life is when I'm brushing my teeth at the end of the night, can I maintain direct eye contact with myself in the mirror or no? Because that tells me if I have integrity or not. And I think that people react that way with eye contact with other people and with themselves. And so I think that it's really important that a lot of these conversations, especially about helping people progress and evolve, has to be right here, at least first.
Yeah, and we are, wine is about bringing people to the table, right? About bringing people face to face and allowing us to connect. And there's many different ways to intersect in wine, however you cut into this wine industry or this product of wine, whatever, you can connect in so many different ways. And yeah, I really appreciate that. Thank you, Emily Ann. Lauren, I saw you for a second.
I mean, I love like what you have all said about like, or no, Katie, you're talking about like the issues about how to tell people when they're doing something wrong, but like in a maybe more polite way. And I think it also comes like, for me, how do we say? No, it's like, because sometimes you like want to sugarcoat things or make things more polite, because I get super nervous about confrontation. And I think it's something that I need to learn personally as well. I know I've done and said some really like ignorant, harmful things in the past, but I've always been really appreciative of people when they've corrected me. And what I need to learn, what I think everyone needs to learn as well, is how to receive almost criticism and how to receive guidance in a way that isn't defensive, because that defensive behavior is misogyny. It's patriarchy. It's like not being able to accept faults. And so I think that it also comes from like being receptive to how to make more people comfortable and how to make things safer in a space at the same time. And I think that'll also help us be more comfortable with criticizing others and guiding them to how to make things better. And so it's like a kind of a two-way thing, because we're also learning on that too, on that front.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. Like, I think that is like being open and receptive to criticism and change, like, you know, and like we're constantly moving and shifting, and, you know, we're going to like, I cause harm all the time, and I have to like recognize, name, and like address that. That is how I like mature and I progress as a person. So thank you so much, Lauren. We have 5 minutes, and there's, I do just want to say that keep having this conversation, keep asking these questions, you know, like, it doesn't have to just be on this panel. That's literally how this panel came about. I was screaming into the void, like, hey, who wants to have this conversation? And like, then all of a sudden, all these angels just popped up. We're like, I do. So keep having this conversation. You can make change. You can affect change. Throw it up on your Instagram, have that face-to-face conversation, look someone in the eye and say, what are the ways that, you know, we can move forward and progress and remove the misogyny, remove the dominance, remove the competition, create a more open and inclusive diversity landscape. So I think we have time for like one more question. And I love this question from Amanda. How do we get men to have these conversations? Because progress will only come with intersectionality and inclusivity. And is it our responsibility to encourage them? Do we do more emotional labor for men? No, just kidding. Go ahead. How do we have men to have these conversations? How do we bring this, you know, all of these wine bros into the conversation? Any thoughts there? Should we even bring them to the table? Do they even deserve a seat? I mean, I let Travis in, so, you know.
I think that the primary focus needs to be on education, and, you know, just like with any disease that can rot away your mentality or your body, your physicality, it's better to prevent it. It's better to catch it early. It's better to talk about it before it happens. And so, cat snuck in. And it's all about just getting the education out there, just holding people accountable, and also creating a workplace. We work with alcohol. We spend the majority of our day facilitating a good time for people we don't even know. Some people we know too much. Some people don't want to stop coming. You know, those regulars that just keep on. But we spend most of our day facilitating that, and a lot of us end up leaving with a certain emptiness. Like, we need some of that back, because you pour so much from your cup, and then at the end of the day, you don't have much left for yourself. So you end up seeking it in other ways, in other places. You're lacking sleep. You're lacking other things. I think it's a matter of just repositioning, reorganizing, retraining. You know, making sure that, because once you let somebody, in general in life, once you let somebody rock, disrespecting you or doing something and not correcting it on the spot, allow people to continue to try. And as long as people are gonna continue to try, you need to nip that shit in the ass right away. When you have that new guy who's working with you and he's coming a little bit out of pocket, you need to be like, listen, bro, you're gonna lose your job. You're not gonna be able to work here. You're not gonna be able to rock with us. This ain't what we do. We don't do it after work. We don't do it before work. That's not how we moving. You know, and you need to kind of just be like, listen, we need to click that. You know, and until we get the courage to do that, you know, we need everybody doing that. We need new people to do it. We need management to do it. We need people who've never done it before to do it, and we need them to mean it. That's the most important thing, because Lauren mentioned earlier about people kind of faking the funk, you know, and you know, they doing it just to kind of get by. You know what I mean? I recently had an experience over the summer where big Black Lives Matter all over the wine bar. We get to the spot, they don't even have a ramp. You know what I mean? They're supposed to be this woke ass place, and you know, they have an $80 to go to the bathroom. They're offering us to sit in the front in the sun, and there's nothing there. You know, there's garbage there from the night before.
Yeah, and like that, and thank you so much, because I think like you're fucking killing it. Like, I think like they need to start having this conversation. We all need to start having these conversations, being more aware. Like men, and Amanda followed up, like men need to talk about patriarchy. Men need to deprogram themselves. And so we are out of time, unfortunately. I don't want to cut us off with just getting into it. I don't know how to Twitch or live stream, but to continue the conversation. But all of you guys can continue this conversation. You all can reach out to me on Instagram, reach out to the Vanguard, read the Equity Pledge, read the work that we're doing, and just keep the conversation going, because it's work every single day. Any last thoughts before we go? Anybody want to say, I love all of you, including everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Thank Pamela. Thank you, Pamela. Thank you so much. Thank you, Pamela.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Pamela.
Yes, for creating this space. And also we want to thank the law offices of Jenny Wald. If you need to sue anybody's asses for, discrimination, patriarchy, get at Jenny Wald. You know that. And I just want to say thank you to the Vanguard. Check out the Equity Pledge. This is what this whole thing is about. I want to thank you, Katie. Katie, your new wine store real quick.
Black Cat Wines, we opened June 11th. In Prospect Heights on Washington Ave. Come through if you're in Brooklyn.
Fuck yeah. Come through if you're in New York City.
Yeah.
Emily Ann, where are you at? Where can people get at you?
You can find me at Terroir Tribeca in Tribeca, New York City. Every day we're
Hell
open.
yeah. Yeah. All the time. Travis, where can people yell at you about patriarchy?
You can catch the Hussam on Instagram, dropping content, making wine accessible to people, just really fun stuff. Or you could catch me at Contento and come see us when we open up in June.
I'm so fucking excited. It's like 3 blocks away from my apartment. I'm like so stoked.
1/10 between Madison and Park.
Yes. Kilolo, where can people get at your genius? Let us know.
Kilolo Strobert on Instagram, my name, and Fresh Direct Wine and Spirits in Park Slope on 5th Avenue between 17th and 18th, and floating around the city.
Streets. And Lauren, where can people find you?
I work in a warehouse up in Westchester, so you can't visit there, but I am on the internet, so.
I was going to say, you could see Lauren if you have like a couple million to spend on a bottle at auction. She'll be there.
Yeah, she'll come to your house and evaluate that wine.
You got like 10 grand to spend. She'll be there.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about the Wine Bro auction house. We didn't even get there. Jesus, so much. Thank you, everybody. Please go on to the next panel. And thank you, everybody who watched. Guys, so much. Thank you to my panelists. I'm in love with all of you so much. You guys, thank you. This was a great conversation. We have a kitty cat, and I hope you have a lovely day. And I hope that you find a way to transmute the harm that you've experienced in your life. And I love you.